Welcome, everyone, to the Heart of the Artist. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today, Diane Murray Ward. Catalyst and I, yeah, she's over there jumping up and down. Catalyst and I have been so excited about this interview, and it is time. It is here. It is now. Diane, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much. I am humbled. Thank you. Catalyst and you. Wonderful.
Um, Friday, I had an event that affected me deeply emotionally. I had an interaction with a person who was homeless that just hurt my heart. I'm getting emotional about it now because I have to cry every show. Diane, you were so kind. You were so kind. You've continued to just be so sweet to me, to encourage me. Thank you so much for doing that. Um, I feel like your words of support maybe have come from a place of deep knowledge and experience. Can you speak about that?
Well, I've worked with a lot of individuals who were homeless because I used to cook for a homeless shelter. I cooked for two homeless shelters, actually, and it was through the church. And the churches rotated so that each parish had a chance to do that, and nobody was overwhelmed because you had to pay for the food yourself. You cooked the food, you paid for the churches have pantries, but I found that the pantries, I never used them. The reason being, people would bring, for example, dented cans. You never cook with Would you do that to your family? I don't think so. So what I did, I used my own money. I cooked whatever I cooked for my family is what I brought to the shelter. I mean, why would you feed anyone who's already in this situation with anything less than your best? I like to cook. So for me, that's a good creative moment. I like that. I like writing, I like cooking, I like dancing. So for me, that's how you show love. That's expressive. So uh that for me was a wonderful way of giving because, as you know, there but for the grace of God, right? I mean, feel very blessed that I have never been homeless. I have always been fed. My mother and father always provided. I was never homeless. I was always fed. I had all of that. And you can't take that for granted. You really, really need to be mindful of the fact that there are some people who never have a meal. And it's so interesting. I keep Jonathan in prayer. That was the name of the gentleman that was mentioned last week. And I pulled a piece specifically, a situation that happened with a coworker of mine uh, when I was a college administrator. And it's a short piece. And I thought of you, and I thought, you've got to take a look at this. Is a very old piece, but I'm going to tell you what it's about. The title is I'm Full. Scavenging trash cans along the way, she gradually approached a multi-laned avenue. A coworker saw her and bought her a complete dinner meal, handed it to her, and continued on to work. For some reason, my coworker looked back and saw the lady throw the meal she just bought into the trash can. Now incensed, my coworker recrossed the busy highway and confronted the lady and said, I just bought you this meal and you threw it away. I just bought this and it's untouched and it's hot. Why did you throw it away? The woman replied, I'm full. My livid coworker told me she would never buy any of them a meal again. I asked her not to think that way as I explained that this woman was unable to comprehend and appreciate such a wonderful gift. Maybe the next trash can scavenger benefited. I hope my coworker has reconsidered. DMW. Now, that's a true story. Now, if my coworker hadn't looked back, she would have thought, oh, I did such a wonderful thing. Yeah, you still did a wonderful thing. You still did a wonderful thing. And I hope that she would continue to be helpful. And when you see someone in need, to do just that. So it's an old piece, but you reminded me of it when you helped this gentleman, when you helped Jonathan, who was obviously in dire need. I mean, I've come across homeless people that have gotten violent, that and others that have been so grateful that you give them more, and you take them, to the deli, and you do whatever if you can do it. And
Yeah.
so I just thought it was wonderful. So that thank you for that, because that's love in action,
Um,
not just in words or theory or something out there, or it's not giving somebody $1. It's actually doing something physical in the moment, which is what I find most individuals, especially those that are homeless, need.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a situation, it's been about a month ago where I had a scratch off ticket. I had done a scratch off ticket and it was like a $5 thing. And there was a gentleman that appeared that maybe he was homeless and he was getting coffee. And so he stepped up to pay for his coffee and he had coins. He had laid coins out and he was kind of pushing the coins forward with his finger. And I just laid the ticket down beside him and I just, walked away and I headed to the exit. And I had almost gotten out the door and I heard, ma'am, really loud. And I turned around and he yelled, thank you. And the look of joy on that man's face, you would think that I had given him a new car. I mean, just in that moment, that little thing that would mean, just something
Priceless.
minuscule.
It's
Yeah. And
priceless.
to him,
It's
that he
priceless.
was
It
just
really
a
is.
literal joy on his face.
That's right.
And I was just like happy to see that. Um, but even if he hadn't, called out or anything like that, I would not have, because I didn't do it for me, right? I did that for him. And that's, can you speak on that whole thing of people being like, somehow they've invested themselves in this gift that they're giving, and if people don't receive it the way they want it to be received, it's offensive to them?
They didn't really give it as a gift. There was a motive for self. That's not a gift. you know, I always thought a gift, you give it without thinking that I'm going to get anything in return. And let's face it, there are things I do that I don't tell anybody I do. I just do it because I want to do it. It's not to get brownie points or something. It's if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. No one's holding, no one's saying, oh, we're tallying up how many times you gave someone a sandwich or bought someone a cup of coffee. I mean, there was a guy at McDonald's and he didn't have enough money for what he wanted. And the guy was drooling. And I told the fellow on the other side, I said, give him what he wants. Look up there, see what you want. And I gave the guy my card and I said, yes, I just bought for me. Now I'm buying for him. And other people on the line were like, and I said, and he's going to sit right here and he's going to eat it, even if I have to sit with him. People can be so cruel, but you're using a coupon and I'm using my credit card. Don't get it twisted. This not come out of your mouth. You're still fed, obviously. This man was starving. And so you don't, and he said, Miss, thank you so much. And I was like, you're very welcome. And then I left. Those are moments when you're not thinking of self. If you have to do something and think of self, what you're going to get from it, keep it. It's not coming from a good place.
I
I
love
don't know
that.
how else you put it.
I love that. And Christy just put a great comment. I think it was Christy that put a comment in. Oh, Jane did. That happens all the time at the market next door. People need help, especially those with kids. Yeah.
Yes, especially, especially. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was this close to bringing Jonathan up to my hotel room.
I
And
know.
you know,
I could tell.
I was kind of like, I just need to scoop him. But it was obvious when it became obvious he needed medical help. That was I couldn't do I didn't have the resources for that. So
But also understand the homeless issue is worldwide. We know that in America very, very well, but it's worldwide. Things are happening all over the world. And that, believe me, Jonathan appreciates the fact that you said something because the people in the hotel were familiar with him. Remember, he's here all the time, something like that. Well, then what does that tell you? So at that moment, you were meant to come into that space to see him, to act on it, to help him get medical care. And as I told you, when you felt his spirit, it didn't mean that he went to the other plane. It just meant that he was saying thank you because we're connected. Okay, just remember that.
I love that. We're all connected. And I do absolutely believe that to be true. 100%. What's the most rewarding moment that you've ever had in serving with the cooking that you were doing?
Oh man, one of the priests came up to me about a month later, and he said, "Did you make the such and such?" I don't even remember what it was. Did you make the such and such and such? And he, I don't know, might have been lasagna or something, like Mama used to make. And I said, well, yeah, I made that. He said, one of the residents wants to know, Father, would you ask that lady, could she make it again? Because it was really good. And I was like, oh, now I'm taking orders. I didn't even, I thought that was kind of cute, but it was like, what? Chef on call. It was, uh, and this was a shelter that during Christmas time we would always make the meal extra, extra special because in that particular shelter, the men were allowed, it was all male, the men were allowed to keep one of their children with them for the meal. And so we would make it extra, extra special uh, in the hopes that we never see you again and that you and your kid are having real Christmas, the next Christmas would not be here because I don't want to see you again and that kind of positivity, so but that was kind of cute offhand. That's what I could think of. I just cracked up and I said, Father, hopefully maybe he won't be in the shelter when I make it again, but okay, tell him I don't want him to be there. I don't want to know who he is, but I hope he's not there for that meal. Don't stick around for that.
I love that. That is so cute. Can she please make that one again? Do you feel like there are because you obviously have a knowledgeable perspective, do you feel like there are solutions out there for the struggles that homeless people are going through that we could apply as a society, or have we found all of the available answers and they just fall short?
we we have to realize that every homeless individual was once somebody's baby. And I think that people somehow think they're something other than. They're not. Um, I've worked with psychiatrically disturbed individuals. I've worked with people that are not psychiatrically disturbed. I've worked with veterans. I've worked with people just down on their luck. I mean, it's not, it doesn't encompass everything I do in life, but I find it difficult to walk past someone who was sitting on the curb. I find it difficult to watch a mother having her child beg. You know, that's upsetting. You know, it hurts your heart. It must hurt her heart and daddy's heart to see that the child is out there begging. Who doesn't give to a child? Everybody gives to a child. I mean, you know, now what does that psychologically do to the child?
Right.
Okay. And if the child survives that, the same thing with children that are abused in whatever fashion or form, if they survive that, they grow up to be sometimes, not always, angry teenagers. Okay, now what do I do with this angry teenager? Okay, you survive that, guess what? You end up with, if it's not resolved or not counseled or whatever, or caught, you end up with an angry adult. Okay, for some people, it started very, very early on. You know, you can track it. You know, childhood schizophrenics. Well, if, for example, I'm not picking on schizophrenics, but I'm just saying, whatever that situation is, if it's not dealt with at that early stage, then it continues. We think it just disappears. You got to deal with that, and I think that's where a lot of work needs to come into play. It's not doesn't it doesn't mean you're going to be homeless. It doesn't mean you may be academically quite bright, but that doesn't mean you don't have issues. Okay. I've had very bright patients, very bright clients, but they got issues, things that haven't been resolved. And people just glossed over it for a variety of reasons. Um, but I think one of the things that I've found in doing poetry is that there are so many people that find writing cathartic. And there's a lot in the arts that allows for that cathartic uh, availability with people. You know, it can be dance, it can be music. You know, when you look at lyrics for songs, most of it is quite poetic, but sometimes it's also so cathartic. And that's why people can feel something in it. That's how come it becomes your favorite melody. That's because that person has been able to strike a chord in you, so to speak. Those of you that know music as well, it's those moments that you say, wow, I can meditate on that. Or wow, that takes me away. It can bring you good memories too. Don't get me wrong. Everything doesn't have to be negative. There's love and there's angst and there's sorrow and there's grief and there's all the good stuff that make life what it is. But at the same time, let's face it, if you have a singing bowl, there's no words. A singing bowl is very contemplative, very calming, very healing. Sometimes you don't need anything more than just that singing bowl, and that takes you to a place. So, between music, dance can bring you to tears. Uh, I don't know if you get a chance, look at opera. I mean, you know, whether or not you understand Italian or German or whatever it is, you can get it in English. You know, look at Medea. That'll blow you away. There's all kinds of ways for you to express yourself by watching and seeing and living with that character, crying along with that character. I mean, you know, the sky's the limit. Give yourself the opportunity to experience that, though. Okay, you've got to be, in my opinion, open to experiencing that. Don't assume, oh, it's opera, everybody dies at the end. Yeah, I get it, but there's some real gems in opera. I'm just using that as an example. There's a lot you can learn from looking at the arts. And for us as wordsmiths, writing writing is that vehicle for so many people. And that's what I think, um, even if you can't read well, there's an audiobook. You can have somebody read it to you. I'm with I'm in several different Zooms, and there's one Zoom in particular where a lady joined. It's for poetry, all kinds of any kind of poetry. You can submit anything you want. And she admitted, she said, I never understood poetry. She said, that's why I joined. I don't get it. I just, I don't get it. She said, as a child, of course, they had to study E. E. Cummings, Robert Frost, all the ones we all studied, right? And she said, honestly, I didn't know what anyone was talking about. She said, so she said, so poetry isn't something I really enjoy. But I pushed myself. I said, I want to join this group. I don't have to say anything. They'll let me just listen. It's a very small group. There's never more than maybe 10 people. Okay. And she said, and nobody pressures her to make a comment. They put the poem on the share screen and they put the little bio of the author on the bottom. So you know where the person is coming from. Very cute, very nice. And one day, and she was quiet for a long time. One day she spoke up and we were so shocked. So, oh, she's got something to say. This is great. She said, I just want to say thank you so much. And I don't get this stanza and this stanza and why they repeat. And everybody was so kind. Now, we didn't all have the same take, even though we read the same poem. And that's when she learned, and she admitted it, there's no right or wrong answer. We each come from a different place. So I might pick up one thing, someone else picked up something else, and then we appreciated the fact that we shared the comments. And for her, it's like, what a joy. You could see the revelation. This woman must be like 80 something years old. The revelation she had, I finally get it. And you could see the excitement in her. That's a wonderful thing to witness. I mean, when you can help somebody appreciate this art form, that's beautiful. I mean,
I love the fact that an 86-year-old woman was jumping into Zoom to find out about something she didn't know about.
well,
I
that's
love
80
that.
something. I don't know. She never divulged, but she's up there. She's mature, very mature. I should have said very mature, very mature. But it was so nice to see because she lit up and then she started submitting poems too. And we were like, oh, excited, you know? So it's nice when you can do those things to help people enjoy something else that is was so out of their comfort zone that now she can include in her toolkit. She wrote something and we were like, she wrote a poem. Hello, bring it, bring it. And we encouraged her. And I think when if any of you have that opportunity to do that for somebody else, oh my gosh, that's that's priceless. I mean, that lasts forever, you know?
Absolutely. So, you mentioned something earlier that made me think, are you from Louisiana? I think you said something about a parish, or is that a New York thing?
Oh, New York. It's no parish meaning a church.
Oh,
It
okay.
was church. No,
Gotcha.
and so the um the churches would take turns. They would go around, and then you would have this week or that week or whatever. And you were responsible for the whole week. And soup, salad, uh, no sodas. I mean, there was restrictions on what no junk food.
Right.
We homemade cake, bread, butter, and you had a whole menu and you had a partner. And the other good thing about that was that you selected which part of the meal you wanted to bring in. It gave you an opportunity to meet the other church people because, otherwise we don't know each other. And so you had a team. And that was kind of nice. That was really very, very nice. So yeah, that was fun. That was a fun community building friendship uh kind of thing. Yeah, that was nice.
So are you from New York originally?
Yes, I was born in New York. Yeah,
The
born in New
city or
York.
upstate?
Love New York. Love New York. um I'm near museums. I'm near all kinds of stuff. I like art. So that's wonderful. And I think that it's I mean, New York is my home. I can get any kind of food I want. I hear several languages all at the same time. Uh, all kinds of clothes, all kinds of, everything. It's just, and we don't sleep. It's 24/7. I love the night. I love the night. So that's great. I was born at night. I love the night. So I think that that's, for me, New York is always exciting. It's always jumping. It has its situations, just like every major city. I like it when people tell me they're going to be in town. I try to connect with them. So that's always cool, you know. And there's so many wonderful places to eat. And I think the fact that, you know, there are some cultures where they Americanize the food, and I prefer to eat what you eat. What did your mama make? What how do you eat this? And you know, I go to places that are ethnic real, like, okay, this is like back home, right? This is how you eat. And that's always a pleasure, that you can find the real home stuff. Um, I don't want to eat when I want to eat American, I can eat American. Same thing if you go away. I don't want McDonald's in the Bahamas. I want, just short of me going to your mama's house. What do you eat? Where do you go? And when you travel, you usually find, and I find that sometimes that's true here too. It's a hole in the wall. Sometimes it's a place, oh God, I'm not coming here at night. But the food is so ouch, outrageous. Um,
Call it a joint. If you can find a good joint, you know the
Joy.
food is going to be off the chain.
Well, let me tell you, I like New Orleans. You mentioned Louisiana. I like New Orleans. And there's a guy who wrote a cookbook, and I got the cookbook, and he's a chef in New Orleans. And I said, next time we go to New Orleans, I want to find this guy. So, we stayed in the French Quarter that time, and my niece was going to college there, and all kinds of stuff was going on. So I said, let me try to find this guy, and I found this cab driver, and he said, "Are you okay?" I said, I'm lost. I'm looking, but he said, "You ain't lost. You from right here. You right here." And coming to find out, he was a New Yorker, and I said, "I'm trying to find this person." He said, "I can take you where he is." Well, I thought our bodies were going to be with the swamp. He started driving through all kinds of tall grass and stuff. And I said, "Oh God, we're going to die. We're going to die. Jesus, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do whatever. I didn't do anything. I didn't know I did anything bad in the first place. But just in case, just in case." And all of a sudden, the road opened up, and it looked like a shack. It looked like a shack. Opened the door. There was this chef guy. He was in the kitchen, and there were a whole bunch of people there with their pearls and diamonds dripping. They had Louisiana Cajun sauce going up this side of the head. They had crawfish etouffee on this side of the head. And it was like, this guy wanted to cook country, familiar, home. Okay, the hotel had the recipe book. Everything he made was so much butter, 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 butter. But that's okay, you know. And the food was so amazing, amazing. And there was so much to take back to the hotel. So I mean, but this was, I wanted Louisiana cooking, authentic, the way his mama make it. And that's what I got. So sometimes you go on these journeys, these adventures, and it's like, and the cab driver, I said, I thought we were going to be gator bait. I mean, I didn't see any signs like, what street is this? I was afraid to ask anything. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It was fabulous. So, you get these wonderful gifts, these wonderful surprises, and I'm grateful for them. I'm very grateful for it. And he signed my book and everything. So that was great.
Oh, I bet that was some good food too. Like gumbo is one of those things, just give me a giant life-size bowl. I just sit in it. Let me just soak in the gumbo
with a biscuit.
with a, with a biscuit.
I learned that too, with a biscuit.
So what was it like? What was your New York like growing up as a young lady? What are the things that stick out to you that you can share?
Well, I uh, I was very fortunate that uh, I was raised with my mom, my dad, my siblings. They had the good sense to have me first. Thank you, Jesus. Uh, I'm the eldest, but the littlest. Uh, I lived early on in an apartment building, and every kind of culture lived in the apartment building. I had Jewish friends, I had Puerto Rican friends, I had other Spanish kids that were from wherever. It was a very culturally mixed setting. I went to a very culturally mixed public school. I thought everybody was raised that way. You're in your little your place, and you think that's how it is, right? Uh, then we moved to a house, and again, the neighborhood on the block, all the houses are culturally mixed. You know, um, the black fellow in that building, he's a policeman. The other one, he's an accountant. Um, Biracial couples. I didn't think there was anything odd about that. I thought everybody had, that was the norm to me. I didn't, as you get older, then you realize, oh, no, we accepted every faith, interfaith, it wasn't about acceptance. It was about, hi, that's my friend Amy. Hey, Joey, how you doing? You don't, you don't say hello to only people that, oh, by the way, are you Catholic? Are you Jewish? Are you Muslim? Are you, no. Um, and because of that, again, you got to taste a lot of different foods. It was like, what? And it all smelled so good. And you could celebrate everybody's holiday. You know, I got dreidels. I know what a humantasha is. I mean, what? It just, it, I took it for granted. But I'm so happy that I had that experience, because as an adult I know better that some people who want to say this group is like this group is like this. I don't want people putting an umbrella over any group, and especially not me. So I was lucky that early on in my life I had a variety of people around me, and they were just, everybody's the same. Everybody, everybody's the same. Our next door neighbor, Italian, her and her father. And I remember she was sometimes our babysitter. And I remember I would get up every morning and look at their window. One of their windows faced mine. And her father used to string peppers on a string in the window. And I'd say, Miss Clara, what is your daddy doing? Sun drying peppers. He from the old country was stringing the window. And every day I'd look to see, oh, they're not ready yet. Oh, they're not ready yet. And every time they disappeared, I said, what is he doing with the peppers? And she said, he's making a pepper sandwich. I never heard of a pepper sandwich. Your daddy eats a pepper sandwich? Yeah, Italians, they eat peppers. I did not know this. Of course. Now, I become an adult. Oh, you don't know? What, you don't know? Everybody knows that, because I'm so educated. I know this already. Okay. It's just like because I have Jewish friends, and they would say, I know you have a kosher kitchen. That means you have separate utensils for certain things than others. Diane, how you know? Who doesn't know this? I mean, you these are things you keep in the back of your brain. You know it. It's second nature to you at that point, and you appreciate and respect the fact that that's their custom, their culture, religion. Uh, if you do that from childhood, then it makes you, I think, a better human being when when you get older in life. And so I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that I had that experience. And my parents were very open to everybody. It was like, okay, that's your friend, Hiram. Okay, okay, good. Judy, okay, yeah.
So as humans of similar cultures, people get into um, situations where communication breaks down. But when you add an element of different cultures, different language, different expectations of other parties, based on understanding of culture, your frame of reference, your worldview, I would think that, sometimes things can get stickier. So how did the folks in your apartment building who are all learning to live together and get to know each other, surely there were times where there was some friction. How did those things get resolved?
I don't recall any friction. I think that when it comes to language is not a barrier in New York City. I don't know. You use sign language. You see my baby. You see my baby. You do. You use what you have to communicate with people, and I don't think it's funny you say language because I was responsible for translation services in another setting. And in New York, we have so many languages here. You can't use that as an excuse. You can't use an excuse as an excuse in hospitals, in courtrooms, in anywhere. You can't do it. There's a law in New York. Hospitals have to provide language services. Okay. There's no excuse for that. Maybe in other places. So in our apartment building, you use your hands. You use your so and so's in danger. Come. You see the panic in someone's face. It's panic. You call your mother. You call your father. You know, somebody fell. I don't recall any of that ever being an issue. And maybe being as a child, it wasn't something that they were included me in anyway. But in terms of school, and I don't recall it being a problem because quite frankly, the teachers treated us all equally. And I had predominantly uh, white teachers, but when I got to junior high school, I had black and white and Spanish teachers. And then in high school, I had Spanish, black, and white teachers. And so it just seemed like a natural progression. I mean, you play hopscotch with everybody. You play double dutch with everybody. You don't need language to know how to turn a rope. Oh, you want me to? Okay. Or play jacks. So children can have that nonverbal communication right there that is an asset because you don't need language. You can share half of your sandwich with another kid whose lunch fell in the puddle, and like you see them crying like, oh, here, have half my sandwich. You don't need language for that. Maybe adults have forgotten that, you know, that you don't need language necessary. Again, it boils down to doing, right? You give. Um, so no, I don't recall any language barrier. No.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Did your parents did they volunteer, or like where do you, because you obviously have a great care, for the world around you and people in it. And did that come from your mom and dad? Is that a value they instilled in you?
Yeah, they were always very well, they were busy taking care of us, so we were enough of a handful be working and everything else. But active in the church, community board, school board, PTA has been around for what, 200 years? The Parent Teacher Association. I mean, hello, every day a bake sale, Boy Scouts, whatever. When you do things in the community that engage your child, then you do a lot of volunteering It's not, they're not paid gigs. These are things you do out of love. So if you can be involved, then you afford yourself the opportunity to do so. Uh, and so I think that's where that comes up. But they, we were well cared for. We were, I mean, and I had aunts and uncles and a grandma and uncle and all of that. So the support services was, that kind of community was always there. And the other thing is that, neighbors back then, looked out for everybody's kid. That you looked out for everybody's child. It wasn't this blinders thing. I'm only looking for my kid. I'm only looking for my kid. My kid. No, you see another kid that looks like they're having trouble or something. That adult would always also go over there and say, "Are you okay, Billy? Are you all right, Juan? Is everything okay? You need help?" Sometimes I think people are a little reticent nowadays, but when I was a child, that wasn't the case at all. You just, you, I don't know. It's different, I guess. Yeah.
Kinder, maybe a kinder, gentler world, hopefully. Maybe we can get back to that.
I hope we can. I hope we can, because we need to, because children need that kind of security. They need to know that this adult, this person is going to help me if I'm in trouble, that this my neighbor lady is there for me. I got locked out, and and then you see the kid is like almost going in panic mode. The eyes are this big, and you say, "Oh, okay, we'll sit here now. I'll leave mommy a note, okay, that where you are, or daddy, I leave a note where you are. It's right next door. Things like that happen to kids. You lose the key. You do, whatever. It Children are children all over the world. Children are children, and that's what people need to remember. You know.
Did you grow up doing some of the things you think of in New York, like going to Broadway shows or going to Central Park or any of those things that are sort of, things you think about when you think about New York?
Well, you brought up Central Park. Um, the first time I went to Central Park was a school trip. Now, the public schools here, they're really good about taking you on class trips. I mean, I can give you a tour of the Museum of Natural History. Okay. I know where every dinosaur bone is. I can tell you when you moved T Rex to another room because he was over there. Okay. So they were really good. The aquarium, all that stuff, because parents work. They're not always able to take you. I mean, you go on picnics, that's true. You do things like that. But these kind of museum trips and stuff, we looked forward to it. So the first time I went to Central Park. Of course, you have a buddy system because you're the partner with somebody. That's how the teacher was able to keep track of you. And you can't tell it now, but I was very small. I was very petite, and I felt, how you feel eyes on you, but you're not sure where it's coming from. And I turned around. There was a Doberman Pinscher. Now, I never saw a dog that big before. That dog was eye level to me because, like I said, I was a peanut. I was little, but I felt those eyes on me. And all I heard was a couple of steps, and I started running. And that dog ran after me, and I went running. I dropped her hand, and I started running. And I ran up this thing. It looked like a mountain, but it was just a big rock outcrop, whatever. And I'm up there. The dog is barking at the bottom of this thing. My teacher's running, my schoolmates are running, and this poor cop, he's, little girl, drop your lunch. And I'm saying, no, he wants to eat me. He wants to eat me. I never saw a dog that big before. And the poor cop, he's out of breath. He's panting, and he can't make it up this outcrop that I'm in. And finally, because the dog got away from the leash of the owner finally catches up to the dog, takes the leash, and I didn't know I could do that. You know, adrenaline, uh, you know, I didn't know I could climb up it looked like a hill to me, whatever. And when he got the dog under control, I shimmied down, I came down, and my teacher said, "Are you okay?" You know, I said, "I'm okay, I'm okay." I want to continue on the trip. And I said, I grabbed my lunch even tighter when the cop said, little girl, drop your lunch." I did the complete opposite, the complete opposite. I was so scared. And we continued on the trip. And I don't even remember eating lunch. And I remember saying to Ma, what did you put in my lunch? Because you know, this big horse dog, this horse came after me, you know. And so, and so, interestingly enough, I didn't realize it, but after a while, I became afraid of horses. And we have the horse-drawn carriages.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of mine who took me to a stable, and I rode a horse, and then I was fine. So you see how things, you know, that experience with the Doberman all of a sudden transferred to horse. All of a sudden, and then I mentioned that to somebody. She took me to her stable. I got on I spoke to the horse first, big brown eyes, and I said, "Look, this is a challenge for me." And he was like, "Oh God, this lady is something else." But he let me get on him. I didn't realize how high up you are when you're on a horse for some reason. And I'm not afraid of horses. They're wonderful. But you see how one thing from childhood can bring you into something else. You're like, why am I afraid of a horse? It's a horse. But that's why. So
Now, what was the horse ride? Was that in Central Park as well? Because I
what they did, they I went around in the stable.
okay.
I went around. Now my girlfriend, she's a writer. She loves horses. She's a writer. And I told her the story about the Doberman in Central Park, my first time in Central Park. And she said, "Diane, come on, I'm gonna take you to the stable." And one day after work, we went to the stable. And I was so proud. I said, I got to get the outfit because I think I'll look cute. I think I'll look cute in that little jockey thing with the hat. Oh, I think I'd look cute. And, and we just, and the horse just cloppity, cloppity, clop. And we went around, we stayed inside, which was good enough for me. You know, I'm not trying to be Wuthering Heights. I'm just trying to, feel comfortable on top of the horse. And that was cool. That was cool. I'm good. I was good.
Were you did that incident with the Doberman make you afraid of dogs? That could have really scared the pants off of
It,
a lot of
I,
kids.
no. And it was interesting because, I was used to like little terrier and little poodles and is it a dachshund? The Frankfurter dog? Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
Dachshund?
No.
I'm used to those. But I never ever saw a Doberman. And so but no, it didn't. Do I want a dog? No, because I'm not going to walk it. Why am I going to lie? And no, they got to be walked, what? 2, 3 times? Oh, no, no. Find me a dog that can use the bathroom. We're good. No, not doing it. Not going to lie. No. But but I'm just saying, and it's interesting because dogs always bark and want to look at me and talk and use their eyes. They're cute, but yeah, but you're right. That could have been a situation of a fear of dog. No, I'm not afraid of dogs. No, no. Good
Excellent.
point. Yeah,
So
good
when
point.
when did the poetry start to come into play? How old were you when that started?
I think I was always writing. I was writing little songs on my piano when I was little. It was just something. It was another creative thing. I used to dance. I thought I was going to become an artist actually. I tried for an art school. You had to make a portfolio, so portfolio, you had to show portraits, you have to show, I mean, all kinds of things. Catalyst can tell you've got to show all kinds of different kind of media. And I had two wonderful art teachers. In fact, my first live model was my art teacher, which was great. And this is in junior high school. And he got up on the table, got a chair, and he posed, and it was fantastic. And but I didn't make it to the art school, but that's what I really thought I was going to do. I made it to a specialized school, but it wasn't art.
Wow. Do you still paint or draw?
Yes, yes, and knit and crochet and Turkish knit and all that good stuff. And um, those are things that I find very relaxing,
Mm-hmm.
and can take you to a whole nother place. Uh, Writing material, you never know. Like, my muse goes on and on. So you can you can use all those things to help you ambulate through a whole lot of space and stuff in your mind. So um, knitting and crocheting and um,
Do you find if you're writing and maybe you're like struggling with a piece, do you find that switching to another um art, like doing some knitting or doing some painting, do you find that to be helpful to sort of reboot you out of whatever that blockage is with the writing?
I will the way I write is I usually script first. I handwrite something. Then I put it on the computer. I date it and I draft it. I I don't get I guess I do that and then I say, okay, I'm going to go to another piece. I will sooner go to another piece of writing. I will not go to knitting or crocheting. I will go to something else that I have like maybe 5 pieces I'm doing all at once, but I'll do them at different times and I'll date them and I'll say, okay, I got to leave that alone. I'm gonna let that rest or simmer or sit. Or I may have a piece on the computer and I'll say, wow, this is coming into, I'm going through another vein of thought with that. I'll highlight it, cut and paste it, put it on another page, come back to it and say, that's an interesting idea. Go back, and then I'll go back to the original one and say, okay, whew, that's out of the way. That's what you mean by blockage. I'm never blocked. There's so much to write about that I there's always something to write about. So because I have work in different stages of development, I can go back to anything and say, okay, now we'll continue. So that, and I don't have a particular time of day to write. Uh, Anytime I go out, food shopping, to mass, whatever, I always have pen and paper with me, always. So I I don't set aside a time because I don't know when the muse is going to hit me. I may see something or hear something. I'll say, and I just want to make sure I capture that enough so that perhaps that's something that I will expound upon later on.
Yeah, yeah. Poetry, I call it poetry seeds. Little seeds.
You'll
Do
see.
you happen to have or remember what was your first poem that you ever wrote?
Hmm. It might have been something that I was writing to music, though. It might have been something I was trying to tinkle out or something, and I don't remember all the words or anything, but I know it was about friendship and valuing friendship or something like that. But you know, and it was something very, very simple, but it was still something that it's like, I know I could do that. And just jot a few. It wasn't more than 3 or 4 lines, whatever it was, in pencil, with my eraser and my pencil. And I just thought that, oh, I want to write that. For some reason, I wanted to jot that down. Now, it's did I call it a poem? No. I called it, like it was thinking, thoughts. It, Something that came to my head that I felt I wanted to kind of remember for a little while. uh, you know, I didn't know to call it poetry or a poem.
Yeah.
That language I did not attribute to it, but at the time it was like, oh, and I, you know, yeah.
So you're in New York and there are so many amazing poets, in that area. Did you connect with other poets like, we all know Jane Spoken Word. Is she someone that you've connected with in real life? There's just so many wonderful, amazing poets in that
Of
area.
course, and Ray Jane, advocate of words. I mean, there's so many. I mean, skiff verse. I mean, come on. I'm in awe. I learned from these individuals, and quite frankly, the only good thing out of COVID is Zoom. So I now have such a wider uh, audience of people that I can talk to and be part of. But that's the only good thing out of COVID, and so that's you take out of the bad that little bit of good, which is immense, because now you have a worldwide group of people that understand that you don't have to explain writing; they get it. You ain't gotta like, oh, why are you quiet? I'm thinking, be quiet. You don't have to do that. Oh, I'm in my space, I'm in my head. You don't have to explain it. Writers get it. We get it. We get it. You get moody, you might get detached, you might be a whole lot of things, but you're a writer. That's how it is. That's how we roll. And that's it. So you don't have to explain it. That's it. It's good. You know?
I love that statement. We're a writer. That's how we roll. And I was thinking about earlier how, over the course of this show, we've met so many amazing women. And I think maybe the one commonality among everyone that has been on the show, um, is this very strong sense of identity, of who you are and what you have to say, and very clear opinions on things. It seems like all poets are very opinionated.
But
And
what allows that is when they're in a safe space. When you're in a safe space and you can just be yourself and you're not judged for what you say and how you say it. I don't care if you have the wrong tense. What's the wrong tense? Maybe that's you intended it that way. That's your poetic license. That's your truth. That's your justice. I'm not here to mark your paper. Okay, I'm not going to take a red pen and say, no, wrong tense. No, you accept individuals and their words for what they are. Now, we all know, even when we record work, we can go back and change it. That's our prerogative. That's fine. Because once it hits the air, it's different than when you wrote it. It may not even have the same intensity as you intended it until you hear it. Sometimes someone else reading it brings a whole nother shade to it that is like, wow. So having a safe space is crucial. And when people critique, they do it with love, with gentleness, not to bring somebody down. And I think that's where, you know, women and really anyone who has been hurt or whatever can feel okay. They still love me. At least still like me. They didn't kick me off. They're always welcoming. When you have a space that you can do that with individuals, uh, that's marvelous, because that's sometimes exactly what someone needs. And for some that aren't even spitting that night, just being in the room to be around in that milieu, in that atmosphere, might be just the medicine they may need that day. Everybody has a different day. You don't know what's happened in their day. So for people to want to come to your space, can't put a price on that.
do you want to be the old lady in the walker up on the stage, spitting truth? You
I'll
think you'll
probably
still be doing poetry?
jeteing. I'll probably be jeteing. I ain't sitting there no, what is she talking about? She doesn't know I'm a dancer. So
That's
anyway,
right. That's right. You tell him, Diane, you be
thank
just
you, Jane.
saying.
What? Who's she talking to? You know, it's such a joy to be able to talk to creatives, period. People that make pottery, people, painters, all kinds of craft, woodworking. Uh, just being around that energy is great. So whether I'm on a stage or if I'm in a Zoom or, we've had people, and it's just such a wonderful thing to witness in their hospital room having dialysis or whatever it might be, and they come on Zoom and they're giving poetry, okay, and they're giving poetry, and it's like it's no big deal. My doctor said it's okay, and the nurses are being very respectful. You're not seeing anybody else, right? And they're doing their thing, and it's like you might see an IV drip or not, and it's like this meant something, and that means the hospital and the staff and the doctor was like, let me give him his 15 minutes or whatever it is. Let this patient do what they have to do, because that's part of the healing. That's part of the healing and the hope that that particular person needs at that time. That poet gets the love and respect and everything else that they need, that you can't put in a medicine bottle. It's not something I can write as a prescription. It's something that the individual knows they needed, and that prescription has nothing to do with me. It has to do with everybody else that was kind enough to listen.
There's a saying they have that I've heard in business that if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mm.
That there is no stasis, right? There is no neutral gear. You know, you're either in gear driving or you're stopped. You're either growing or dying. And that feels like that's sort of maybe why poets seem like such vibrant people, because poets are never stagnant. There's no
Poets are
mosquitoes in
always
that
listening,
pond.
but poets also learn how to listen. See, and there's a difference between hearing and listening. People sometimes lose track of that. Hearing is when sound hits the timpani in your ear and all that bio stuff. Listening means I'm trying to comprehend what you're talking about. What are you trying to, like that lady who I've told you about with poetry. She was hearing stuff, consonants and rhyme and all that stuff, but she didn't get it. Now she can listen to it and there's a recognition, there's a resonance, there's something, whether it's familiar or unfamiliar, it's part of her learning curve. And you see, people that think they know everything already, they can't learn anything because they know everything already. So, they're stagnant. Okay. But if you're open to listening, which is active, it's not a passive thing. Listening is not passive. Listening takes activity. You have to be engaged at some point to want to comprehend. That's a blessing. That's a blessing that someone wants to understand what it is that you're trying to say.
Do you feel like you were a poet in a former life? I don't know if you're someone who believes in,
Oh
multi.
yeah, I've been here before. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was I think I think it's possible to build on those previous experiences as well. I have a piece uh, where I talk about the fact that I experienced a substitute teacher where I think I might have been a slave or something, or someone he wanted to have sexually or whatever, and here we are in this present day, and I don't think he's forgotten that, and I don't think I forgot him either. So I think there's instances where you get a little flashback on something, sounds or feels something a little familiar. Can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something about that that's way, way back, you know? I think we all have it. Whether or not we listen to it or not is another thing.
Yeah.
But that's an individual choice. But yes, I do believe we have been through this maze more than once. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Like the black cat in the Matrix going across. A little deja vu. It really amazes me. Like every time I have a conversation with like had the conversation with Stacy, had the conversation with Teresa. I feel like you guys are just like these soul sisters, Jane, like because there's like a common thread among y'all of this just independent, indomitable spirit that is just so beautiful and wonderful. And I think that it just gives such, I mean, y'all are like fantastic role models, for new people coming in the scene who are excited about learning this big world of poetry and what is all of this. And, it's,
It's
you guys,
exciting
you
though.
guys are really inspirational,
Thank
and
you.
you're like
That's
the
so
anchor. I
kind.
feel like you're the anchors,
That's so kind of
kind
you.
of the
Thank you.
anchors that create the framework where all of us can thrive. And it's just amazing.
Thank you. I'm humbled by that. I think that it's the more genuine you are, the better. And you have to believe in what you're saying and what you're writing. You own up to it, and you don't have no apologies. This is you see what you get. This is it. And uh, I don't have to apologize for anything I write. And I went to one workshop, not a workshop. He was giving a presentation, and this one poet, he's a professor out west, and he said, "Writers, you can write for yourself. Don't think that everything you write has to be published for the public. Write for you. Write for you. You don't have to entertain everybody every time you write. Write to write and write for yourself." And there were some people in the when the messaging were like, "Oh my gosh, oh my," that was like such a, he gave them permission to, it's like, he said, "People, write, just write, flow, enjoy it, agonize over it, throw the thesaurus across the room, then go get it back again. Do whatever you have to do to get that jumbled unjumbled, or if you want to keep it jumbled or whatever. But everything you write isn't necessarily for the public." And that's so true. That's so true. Be genuine. It's okay.
What did your parents think about your writing? Did they endorse your efforts to become a
I
poet?
was not I was always writing. I mean, I always enjoyed English and literature and stuff like that, but it wasn't that I was writing like to be a writer. No, I I I I was on the science end of academics. So that's where uh they knew that was what I wanted. That kind of thing. So of course, when you're on the science end, you do a lot of writing and you do a lot of research and you do it. That goes along with that. Uh, so it wasn't that, oh, she's going to make this her profession or this that. They always knew um, science minded, dance minded. Um, they knew art, that kind of thing. So they were supportive of anything and everything you wanted to do. It was just, you got to go to school, you got to get the education. I mean, it was just, of course you're going to high school, of course you're going to college. It was that kind of thing where it was just, it was a given. Again, a given. it that's eh, you know um my parents' college books were up there. We had a little, I called it a library, and anytime I wanted to get a book, just take it off the shelf in the library. It was not forced upon us. It was a given. It was accepted. It was There's no debate. What debate? That wasn't something that we debated. It was a given. And because, people in my family went to school, the higher ed, were professionals, we that was the norm. So it wasn't something to think about too much. It was just, if I needed to look something up, I'll look it up. If you wanted to get library, I had a library card from the time I guess you can get a library card as soon as you can sign your name. The library would let you have a library card. So I've had a library card all my life. That was just, and we always went to the library. We always went to the library. That was like every other Saturday we went to the library. I thought that was the norm for everybody, though. You see, that's what I mean. You take for granted these things because you think that's what everybody does. Most of my friends who were at the library. The school, my elementary school had a library. My junior high school had a library. We went to the library. You took out a book, you knew to bring it back on time. It just, I I guess I took for granted the fact that that kind of knowledge, that kind of, I can pick out anything I want at any time I want with my trusty little card. That was currency. My library card was currency that I could control, and I was responsible for making sure it wasn't bent. I always knew where it was, where I kept it safe. That was currency, man. And that was the norm. Didn't think twice about it. There's so much in the chat.
Library,
I
one of
haven't
your
read
favorite
any of the
places.
chat. I hope you're saving the chat because I haven't read any of it.
Well, it sounds like
I'll
the
look at it
library was
later.
it sounds like the library was truly one of your favorite places when you
I
were
loved
growing.
it. I love the library. Yeah,
I love the smell of a library.
me too. Me too. And you know what? There's nothing like the smell of a book. And so even though you can get everything on your tablet and that, I still like the feel of a book. I still don't write in books, and I don't, they're special, and it is just, they're treasures,
Mhm.
and that's why we write them. That's why we do them. That's why we support them. That's why the best that we possibly can. I give books as gifts. I've done that for years. I think that's one of the ways that we share, uh, these valuable leaves that we have. And I have a piece. If I were a book, would I be banned? Yeah, probably. You know,
Ooh, the book maybe.
probably. Yeah. Okay.
Love it. The feel of the books, the hardback books that we had growing up, and it was like I don't know what the material was that the covers were made of, but there was a texture. They weren't slick like the hardback books that we have now, right? It was like some sort of
Yeah.
woven something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
there was almost a nubble
Right.
thing to
Right.
it, you know. That's a texture, if you love books, that's a texture, you could probably, someone could put your hand on that and you would rub it and you would know, oh, this is a book. I know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what this is.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first on-stage performance like and where was it?
It was, wow. My first on stage. My sixth grade teacher wrote a play, The Red Clowns and the Yellow Clowns. We performed it, Channel 13 TV. So I was 11, and they taped it and put it on TV. And that was, there's the Red Clowns versus the Yellow Clowns. And it was a song. He was a musician also. And we had to learn to live together. And so it was about friendship and camaraderie. And so half the class were red clowns, the other, and it was I think it was, he said he had us count off odd and even, whatever it was. And you became a red clown, you became a yellow clown. I'm like, well, that's my best friend. Okay. And this is what the book, what the play was about. And it was the first time I was ever in a studio, I think. And we were so excited we were going to be on TV. I felt 13, oh my gosh. And that was exciting. So I would say that was staged. That was the first time I was ever on a stage, and the cameras, and the people were very nice. All these public school kids coming in here, they're doing a play. The red clowns and yellow clowns. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful experience. And our teacher was beaming because, you want to please the teacher. He was such a nice man, really nice man. And that was exciting. I mean, yeah.
So what was your first like poetry live performance like? And do you remember the piece that you did?
No, it was probably something for school. Our elementary school, we did a lot of stage work. They were very encouraging, in elementary and junior high school. I mean, the teachers were, we did, my first fashion show was junior high school. Whoever had the sewing class had to put on the fashion show that spring. That was the norm. I mean, that was how the curriculum worked. That's how you did it. And so again, took it for granted. Okay, you do it. You're getting a grade and you do it. But that was how it always operated every year. So you get up there, and I'm sure it helped a lot of people overcome stage fright. And you're on stage, and you do these plays, and you do these recitals, and you do these things, and and I think it's good for children to learn that early on. Okay. And I think that's also why, kindergarten class would always do the pageant, and you'd have singers, and, you know, uh, you always have one kid that goes in the wrong direction, and you're still clapping, like, oh, look at little boo boo. She went the wrong way. The rest of the class is going stage right, and she's going stage left, but you don't care, little boo boo. You're going to clap anyway, because it's a safe audience.
Yeah.
So you don't want to scare them into thinking, oh, I made a mistake. Well, she's the doll of the play. Okay, she went the wrong way. She wasn't supposed to, but you still had the whole group feel, thank you, we appreciate you, and you applaud for every child. When you build that experience up from such an early age, priceless. So you grow up thinking, I can do that. I can do that. You still get stage fright. But it's not as bad as if you never stood in front of people. So you do your speech about Abraham Lincoln or whatever it is. Or maybe now they do speeches about Obama, or maybe whatever it is. And you do that, and you get up there and you say, I can do this. Take a deep breath, get a glass of water. You can do that. You're going to survive. You survived before when you were in kindergarten and had to dance in front of, you know what I mean? So it's a buildup. Some kids are naturally hams, they like that. See me, see me. Some kids, not so much, and for some, it takes some time and some practice. And that doesn't mean they're not talented. It just means they haven't grown into it yet. That's all. Doesn't mean they're not talented, And there are actors that were stutterers. Okay? There are people who get severe stage fright. Once they get out there, they're fine. But severe, and you have to hold their hand and say, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And then once they get out there, they're fine. That's okay.
Did you ever have a scenario where you were performing and the audience was upset or angry about what you had to say?
I didn't pay it any mind if they were. I don't recall any. There may have been. I don't know. Uh, they could they could leave. They could leave. They don't have to stay. Um, I think that it's important for you to feel comfortable with what you provide, and you're not going to like everyone. Everyone is not gonna like what I want, what I write or I say. I was in a Zoom and I read something, and you can tell the faces. The closest I can get to it is saying the faces kind of dropped. They got real. That's the closest I could, and it was like, oh. So okay, it's cool. It's cool. I didn't write this for you to like it. I wrote it because I had something to say. Now, there's stuff other people write, and I tolerate it. I because I'm being respectful. I'm being respectful because you presented it. You can rate me any way you want. You have every right to. That's okay too. This is still America, and I still have a right to say what I want to say. You could always turn me off if you see me and you don't want to. I don't know what's gonna come out of her mouth. I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna get a coffee. Whatever. That's your prerogative. It's also my prerogative. That works both ways still in this country. That works both ways. So, and sometimes, we have some artists, sometimes you never quite know what they're going to say because some, they talk about one topic one week and then they come up with butterflies, and 1 minute they're talking about sex and the next hot sex. And then the next week they're like, oh, I remember when I used to jump rope and feed the butterfly garden. And I'm like, is that the same person? It's like people have multiple sides. Well, you're human. I mean, my goodness, if you can't write about that as poets, then why are you in the room? And we give trigger warnings. We do, we give trigger warnings, which I think is a good thing because you don't know what is really, really going to upset someone. Now, you may say something that's a trigger warning that you don't know is a trigger warning because you wrote it not thinking it was one, but to somebody else, it is. And that doesn't mean you turn off the screen. It just means, I wonder why that bothered me so much. That's when the introspection comes in. If you allow it, if you're comfortable with it, that's when it's like, oh, why did that, you know? I've seen that in the faces of people. I've seen that in the faces of people. That's, you know.
Talk about poetry as a way for the poet to express things that the listeners may find ugly, maybe even reprehensible. Maybe the poet is from a culture where it's not like maybe the poet is from a culture where it is acceptable to slap your wife if she did something reprehensible, and they've written a poem about it and we're hearing that. Talk about poetry. Where do we draw the line of what is acceptable for someone to express, and beyond this line it's not okay? Like, where does that boundary lie?
It depends on how comfortable that particular poet is with presenting it in the first place. That's not for me to decide. No, that's not for me to decide. Whoever brings that has a reason for bringing that. So I respect they have a reason for bringing that. And it's educational, maybe something you already know, but it's something the poet needs to express. So without judgment, you listen to it, you say, okay. Maybe it's something the poet says, because it's not expressed, I feel it's my duty to express it. Maybe now maybe I'm the one who's going to bring this to light. Now there may be repercussions on that, not for me. Not for me. Someone else from that culture might feel, how dare you, da 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 da. That's between them. And if you want to share your response to what that person just presented, bring it. You want to write it? You want to, no fisticuffs, but there are words that are just as bruising, right? So go for it. People write what they need to write. I don't know the reasons why people write certain things. It's not for me to know. It's for them to feel strong enough to say, I gotta say this. There was a young lady who was in one of the Zooms I was in, and she looked nervous. You could tell from sitting in the Zoom that she was kind of fidgety. And the topic she had to talk about was rape by her father. She has a younger sister who's becoming of the age that is when the abuse started for her. She wasn't sure how to tell her sister, Daddy is in all of that, Yeah, you love Daddy, la la la. He's always hugging on you and this, that, and the other. That's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people to have to address. She was now admitting to us that she was touched by her father, but she wants to find a way to prevent this from happening to her little sister. And it was so interesting. I forget what state she was in. Someone else said, where do you live? Oh, you live in such and such? I'm only a few blocks away from you. I'll talk to you. I'll meet up. She gave the piece, whatever. The next week, she didn't show. The rest of us were like, where is she? What's happened? Blah, blah. The person that got in touch said, don't worry. I got her help. I gave her a support, a place for support for her and her sister to go. They're getting counseling, whatever. That is absolutely amazing. Sometimes that's what happens when you share uncomfortable topics. And when you say something about culture, you have to respect that. That's what people are raised in. You respect it. I'm not saying join it. Obviously, that's not what you want, but understand that's why people write something, because that inequity. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's what I'm taking away from it is that it's your opinion that we hold safe space for the poet, regardless of the content of what they're saying, that their ability to and their right to express themselves is a sacred thing. And we got to hold space for that, regardless if it's an anathema to us. The words are, terrible. Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Have you seen a change in style? Because I mean, you've been doing this for a minute. Have you seen a change in the overall style of poetry? You look back at things like one of my favorite poems is Williams Blake Tiger poem. And
Tiger, tiger, burning bright
yes,
in
I
the
love
forest
that.
of the night. What
Yes.
immortal hand or eye? They're framed by fearful symmetry. Yeah, I kind of know that one.
Yes, you do. You did, and you did a beautiful impromptu
Thank you.
rendition of that. But like that whole era, it seems like everything was very much rhyming scheme. And then of course, obviously now It seems like we don't hear as much rhyming scheme. In your time in poetry community, have you seen sort of a shift in, maybe more narrative style or more metaphorical, or just have you noticed any patterns or trends?
Well, back when we used ink pen, I mean, I'm not that old. Okay, so damn. Oh God.
Calling you old.
Jeez. Back in the day. Okay, so I think it depends on what culture you look at. Uh, what we write, and also the inclusion of more and more women, that people are being aware of more and more women writers that have been poets for like thousands of years. You look at Greek, you look at Indian, you look at Chinese, you look at all those different poetry forms. We Traditional is traditional. I'm not held to any one of them. Okay. Catalyst has Cyclops. I have Deku. We are always evolving the craft. We are always working with it. We can work within it too because we're so talented, but sometimes you want to expand upon it. And so I don't I think what the public likes maybe in different periods of time is it rhymes. If you have an English teacher that says to you, the only poetry is poetry that rhymes, she's off her rocker. Well, maybe she was beat into submission into thinking that the only thing that's I can call poetry is if it rhymes. I feel sorry for her. Give her a book. We got several. That's not true. So I think that it behooves us to let people know you can do free form and you can do structure and you can do sculptured poetry and you can do anything you want. What do you want to do? That's the question. Now, the freedom women have, women, even when they wore corsets, wrote poetry. It just, that was perhaps what was accepted at the time. You want to sell your poetry book, you got to write it this way. Now we don't care. We're going to write what we want to write. But if you want to market it for a certain group, because you got to know your audience, what does your audience want? That's marketing 101. What does your audience want? If you change it all to this, bestseller. What does Amazon want? What does da want? If that's what's selling and hot at the moment, then you're going to give them what the public what they want, so to speak. It's not necessarily what you want. So what I'm saying is, what do you want? What do you want to? There are poets that use no punctuation. I'm not mad at them. I find it interesting. I find it exciting. I didn't. If you don't want to put a punctuation, cool. That doesn't mean I'm not going to read it. It means I'm not going to try to change it so that it rhymes. How ridiculous is that? That's insulting to the poet. So I think, you know what? People have to remember you have the freedom to write what you want and to read what you want and to listen to what you want. And if you don't like that particular style, okay, you might find you love it. I mean, to each his own. I,
How do you feel like music and like popular culture, music, art, do those things have an impact on poetry, and does poetry have an impact on those
all
things?
of it, all of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. You know, Afternoon of the Fawn, you know, Stravinsky, anybody. Everybody and anything. I mentioned opera earlier. I mean, people think, oh, that's so snobby. No, it isn't. There are some gems. I didn't say you had to take everything. I mean, you can take bits and pieces of a lot of different things. Missy Misdemeanor Elliott, and put her with some Schubert or something. You'd be surprised. It's just you have to allow yourself to experiment. You have to allow yourself, to experience that. Okay. My favorite sculptor is Brancusi. I love Brancusi. I've loved Brancusi for eons. You can't tell me I can't look at a piece of Brancusi and not write something. Sure. I've written about a lot of different things, but each person still takes away their own flavor of what that piece might be. And that's fine. That's okay. So if it's a piece of music, if it's a piece of art, if it's going to the aquarium and you make friends with a walrus and you want to talk about him, that's fine too. It doesn't it's limitless is what I'm saying. The only boundaries are the ones you put on yourself.
Yes. That I want that on a shirt. I want that on a coffee cup. I want that on my underwear. I love that because we do, right? We limit ourselves. We limit ourselves of, what we think we can't do. We define ourselves by what we can't do, you
But
know, and that is so true. That is
yeah,
so true. If you can think it, you can do it.
just be kind to yourself. That's sometimes one of the hardest things I find. Sometimes people are way too critical. I've had to tell people, why are you so hard on yourself? Why are you so hard on yourself? Who are you comparing yourself against? What are you doing? Relax. Just be kind to yourself. It's something a lot of people don't do. You have to self-care. That it's just take the time. Love yourself a little bit. That doesn't take away from your family, your friends, or anything. It means you come back better, actually, because you've now taken care of that core, and that core is what you use for all that energy, right? So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need anyone's permission but yourself. You're the one that's limiting that. I don't know. That's the way I see it.
When do you do your best work? Like what's your state of mind, your frame of mind? What's going on when you do your best work?
Mm. I don't give myself deadlines unless I'm competing for something. Unless I know there's something I really, really want to get completed. Uh, I'll pace myself. I'll calendar it. I'll go back to it a couple of times a day. When I will write almost final, not quite final, getting there final. you know, uh, nope, look at that again, final. And then, so maybe best work, a little bit of pressure if it's something that I want to submit to something. But I give myself time. If I know that it's due tomorrow, I pretty much already finished it yesterday, but I want to put a little bit of oomph on it, or maybe it doesn't need anything. Sometimes you can overwork something, so you got to learn how to not over edit, and leave it alone. Leave it alone. It's okay. Leave it alone. Uh, and then other pieces you just know it's not finished, it's not done, it doesn't feel right. But my best work, I don't know. Sometimes I can write something cold and that's it. It doesn't, which is kind of interesting. It's like, okay, it seems like one take, and then maybe a punctuation or a comma because I want to emphasize a different something between a couple of words. Maybe I will go back. But other than that, even the way it's written on the page, because I write everything out usually, that's the same way I want it on the computer, right? Because that's the flow. That's the way I want it to read. And sometimes the muse just says, write it like this. And whatever that is, I do have a few pieces that are in one take for the most part, and that's it. but I never know when that's going to happen. So that's why I carry the pen and the paper, because I I don't know when that's going to I don't know when that's going to happen. Honestly, it's not scheduled. It's yeah.
The muse shows up when she wants to on her own time. What is the oddest place you have ever felt the muse appear for you?
Oddest. Uh, I can't think of an odd place. I can't, the supermarket isn't odd. I always have my pen and paper. The train isn't odd. Ooh, there's too much good stuff on there. Uh, on a bus, waiting for the bus. Uh, at the dentist. Uh, no, those aren't odd places. Those are places I happen to be. I happen to be there. They're not odd. I
Mhm.
don't have an odd place. Every place is a place. And, you know, if you're watching a movie or something and you say, wow, that's pretty good. That might be considered an odd place because you're supposed to be absorbed in the movie. So you're so much in the movie that you say, whoa, that's deep. Or you're watching a dance troupe, and that might be considered an odd place, but
You,
that's
you're at,
okay.
you're at Kennedy Center. It's Christmas. You're watching the Nutcracker, and it's intermission, and you have to pee. And the muse strikes. You're sitting on the toilet in Kennedy Center, and you're writing a poem.
She knows better than that. She ain't stupid. My muse
She's
is
not that
she's
audacious.
not, no. She's like, I'll hold this. I know you can't hold that, but I'll hold this for you. Okay? Nah, nah. She'll put it in my head and I'll say, okay, I'll think about it. But that's no. You need to talk to your muse, Whisper, and tell her, don't be, you know, you have an interesting muse. She's not related to mine, but okay. Oh
Oh,
boy.
my muse is wildly inappropriate. For real. Can you poet for us a little more?
Okay. Also, I just also wanted to say, because I like to tell you about a book. There's a new book out, Ella,
Ooh.
written by Diane Richards. She did a reading on this about a month ago. It just came out, and it's about Ella Fitzgerald, her younger years.
Oh,
And I think you'll find it really interesting.
I am writing that
Okay,
down.
Ella, Diane Richards. Diane Richards is with the Harlem Writers Guild, and I think you might find that interesting. And there's a piece I'd like to read. Okay, let's see. How about if I were a book, would I be banned? Okay, since I mentioned it earlier. Okay. If I were a book, would I be banned? Of course I'd be banned. Not at first, but eventually. I would couch my comments in a lullaby, a swing-a-by, or three blind rodents. Almost any kitty song, because mine enemy isn't bright. Of course I'd be banned. Not at first, but eventually. The audiobook would follow the melody of a collage of American favorite tunes, thus far allowed and not yet unsanctioned. Of course I'd be banned. Not at first, but eventually. Because I wouldn't sing it. I'd be a marked, masked singer, wear gloves, and utilize a voice change attachment so that you couldn't tell it's me, even upon my speaking voice. Of course I'd be banned. Not at first, but eventually. Because my nom de plume would be divulged by angry someone I trusted who could be bought off with a flight ticket to the moon. And I don't mean piloted by Ralph via Camden Airlines. Of course I'd be banned because I'm not going to change. Just the circumstances allowing my free speech taking on another form. DMW. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have just this wonderful, unequivocal, like these are the rules of the world, right? These are the principles upon which our foundation is built. And I just want to sit at your feet and listen forever.
You give me too much praise. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your attention. Thank you, Catalyst, as well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's a wonderful conversation.
I would love to open up the room if anyone has questions or comments for our poet. If anyone wants to come on mic and
I'm really grateful for the opportunity to learn more about you, Diane. It's been a wonderful experience. Your wisdom is definitely a pillar. Thank you so much for your time.
I just want to say, I just want to say, first of all, I'm sorry I'm late.
well, you got
Hopped off
delayed
the
by a herd
train.
of elk. We didn't
Heard
expect
about
you to
the
be on
elk.
time.
Held up by a herd of elk. Anyway, but I'm so glad I was able to click in time to hear not all of your presentation, but some of it. Diane is consistently incandescent. She doesn't know how to do anything else. And so, I had said once that on top of being incandescent, Diane is what I call um, a death by a thousand cuts poet. Okay. He hit you with, all of these particles of brilliance, and you don't figure out until later on how much it affected you. I have never, not once, seen her not walk away without audience members kind of like checking themselves for, wait a minute, what happened?
Thank
So, and this time was no different.
you. Thank you.
Check your heart for evolution. Anybody else have a question or a comment?
Where's the book, Diane? Are you going to publish one?
You will find out when I want you to find out.
Man. All right, what about your artwork then? Can we go look at that somewhere, or is that only for yourself?
Right now, that's just for myself. I did an art gallery showing at Art Space here in New York. Arlene Crystal Santiago. I was part of that exhibition. And if I do any others, I'll let you know. But it was a wonderful exhibit. It was the art of healing, and it was very well received at the art space. And as I said before, it's important to be able to go between a lot of different art forms. You're not limited to one. Okay. And it's important for us to feel free and fluid, and you experiment with things, and having those other artists there and being part of an art show, art exhibit, was really fascinating. And you learn from each of the other artists there. You always have to be open to to appreciating and asking, and especially when an artist asks you, what do you think, or what did you feel, and you ask them, what were you going through when you wrote that, or when you did that sculpture, when you did that piece. And people ask me, what were you thinking when you did that piece? What was going on with you when you did X, Y, and Z? And that's wonderful, because it's an added depth that you may not have picked up before. It's like, wow, I didn't know that could do that to somebody. And it triggers other work that you want to do. And so, it's sometimes it's just for me, and then other times it's I want it for the public. I remember the first thing I sculpted. I wanted, my parents wouldn't give me a block of granite. I don't know why. They wouldn't give me a block of granite. I thought it was a logical gift. So I used so I used Camay soap. Camay soap is very soft, and I was allowed to have a butter knife, and I carved Camay soap. And my carvings I gave away as Christmas presents one year. I didn't know I was doing something good for the planet. That's recycling. You use the soap and it's gone. That's cool. I didn't know it was called recycling. I don't know. But it just made sense to me, because Camay soap was soft, so I could easily carve. You make a mistake, so what? It's soap. Okay? You use it. And a butter knife is easy. You'll find Diane sitting there carving away on her soap, and it's okay. And I was, oh, these are masterpieces. And I was so proud of, I would take beads, make eyeballs. I would take curling ribbon, make hair, uh, and wrap it up. And to me, this was such a fantastic gift. And people that got on, oh, they really appreciated it because I made it. That's artwork that was usable, that they appreciated, and it was such nice, sweet smelling soap. And I felt good about that. So, you just, I found a way, even though I wasn't getting my block of granite, but I had they would get me as much Camay soap as I wanted, and I could have my Camay soap and my beads and my curling ribbon. Ta-da! Yeah? Where there's a will, there's a way, Terry. Really. Where there's a
We're
will,
from
there's a
the
way.
same era, I think, because I
Huh?
used to do that too. I used to also do that. I was
You
artistic
see?
too, and I used to carve soap. I did the same thing. And my grandmother was artistic, and she carved a whole chess set out of limestone soap or limestone rock. It's like
Okay,
that soft
limestone.
rock.
Yeah, and sandstone is even softer. But
Yeah,
but the thing is, we found a way, right? Right?
right.
We
Yeah.
found a way to be able to be expressive. And that's the beauty. That's the
Now,
beauty
when
of it.
you grew up, did you go and buy yourself your granite that you wanted?
No, no, moved to another medium. I was then able to do, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, my husband knows I want a block of granite though. But the point is that I might get one day. But it's hard to store. But the point is, whatever I wanted to do, whether it be my knitting or my crocheting, um, I found that outlet. I found that way to express. Still writing, still knitting, still crocheting, still, you know, but you find that outlet. Still painting, still doing, but you find that outlet. And because it's not going to be suppressed. If you have that creative spirit in you, you find a way, you know, of doing it.
Thank you.
Yes.
If a whole pallet of blocks show up at your house, don't be surprised.
Any more questions from everyone? And thank you guys for great questions, great interaction. You want to share one more poem before we kind of finish up here?
This is called womb worth. You know, there's a lot going on. WOMBWORTH. One word. How many new soldiers can you provide for men? We don't discriminate too much. Send us your sons and daughters. We don't discriminate too much. Soldier up, soldier down. We don't mind your periodic menses too much anymore. An ability to fight and take direction, silent sighing, whimpering from all the genders. Don't care too much anymore. How many new soldiers can you provide for men? Most with wombs would rather bargain. Perhaps don't assume, for that would be a mistake. Womb holders can be just as treacherous, ego vampires, sucking their juices from wherever they can. So just remember, and let's get to the point. How many new soldiers can you provide for men? Almost sounds like a choice, right? Tired of what seems like busy work, new patterns of put off and wait some more crafts. Listening through their faulty ear, postponing unnatural deaths, you accelerate to help. And all the cookie cutters' wombs can hold just as long as you can birth soldiers provided for men. While you are commerced for your labor rarely tallied, you have no time to dally. You soldier up, soldier down, fields, canneries, sweatshops, granaries, seashores, every nook and cranny for food, sustenance, and the wheel of homespun, nameless in labors of both types, basketed, awaiting your loin dropped, expected to full suckle on your exhausted frame. New soldiers for men. Apparently, some men were not crystallized first in wombs, but raised, forfeiting other opportunities to rise in equality. Apparently, politics frame some mothers' hips. Determining what's best for her nation's future is the additional labor role, placing both she and her babies at risk. Poking in any fertile field, men don't discriminate if it's soldiers they need. Muted by the blast, their wives and daughters safely set aside, teaching them to raise only those bred to order and profit somehow in all the ways war benefits are designed. Blast and rebuild, wound and become a hospital guild. War has benefits. Mortar, plaster backroom cast. Heat-seeking drones drop food, medicines, and possibly blaster ceiling caps. The personhood of those who provide the blood and guts of the marginalized only good enough to strut flags and leave their teeth, return, if lucky, less a spleen, bury their bones in lands where men of war serve. Almost terribly sorry for your loss, but you're still young, bearable, and have ample, nice, full beauty spots. So tell me, how many new soldiers can you provide for men? Gather data, quantify, keep you busy, commute, commune, and smile. Can I sit at the big table yet, please? Stilettos, falsettos, comfortable pumps have no place in the damning deal. We can entertain calmly and compromise at the sanity, not vanity table. Work and scan the globe. Have you enhance your segregated, titled, labeled, and staffed roles, and carry on, fearlessly charting the woes of women. Womb holders, labor pains, otherwise forgotten, and build and concretize what men of war all too well already know, who still believe a pat on the head is sufficient setback for our politically power accountability, and enforcement needs roles. Since while we're talking, while we're here, how many soldiers can you provide for the war's due? So noted. BMW.
Wow. That's a hell of a perspective. I never thought of that before. And wow.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Okay, I'm gonna have to sit with that one for a while. I'm gonna have to study on that. How many soldiers can you provide for the war? It's funny because I think of a lot of times the pieces that I hear that make me think on social issues. They're very, sort of rally cry, right? And that was almost sotto voce. And yet that was a complete kick to the solar plexus. Pure, Stacy said, pure fire and flowers, poetry every time. Well said, Stacy.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to leave us with? You shared so much wisdom, so much great stuff. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like, I want this to add this to my footprint?
I'd like us to care for children, for the trafficked. Understand trafficking takes place in America too. It's not just something some other country does. People are trafficked all the time across America, the United States of America. If you see a child in trouble, please address it. I just think be there for people. You know, I'm very fortunate that I'm okay, that I'm fine, I'm fed, I'm clothed, I'm loved. We see people that aren't that way. So if you can, volunteer your time, your effort. There are literacy programs you could help somebody read. If you know another language, you can do ESL. If you can feed somebody, if you can clothe somebody. I give clothes away all the time. It's just something that you can do. It's not going to hurt you. Pay attention. That's what I'd like you to do. Pay attention. Thank you again.
Be present and care. And of course I have to cry. It wouldn't be this show if just y'all didn't make me cry. You amazing, amazing people who have come on here and graced us. It's good stuff. And thank you for being here to do that with us.
It was my pleasure. I was so glad that you invited me. So thank you.
And I do hope that you will be able to come back for the reunion show. That is going to be the first Tuesday in July, same time, of course, same Zoom. And we hope to have everyone from this first half of the year in one big room together. And I can't wait to see what kind of chaos ensues.
Oh,
to
she'll
think
need
it will be
extra tissues. I mean, you'll just be a puddle. She'll be a puddle.
I know. You're not wrong. Well, Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you all so much. This has been an amazing show with an epic person and poet. Person first, heart first, person first, and poet second. And I'm so glad that we've gotten to know you. Catalyst, I know you've probably got some flowers to give to.
I'm just so, yeah, humbled. I'm humbled as well. Like, you're so graceful and you know your truth, and nothing shakes that. And even lots of stuff comes around, I'm sure, to try and shake it up, but you're just, nope, this is how it is. And those things are like, you're right, this is how it is. What was I thinking? And that's just beautiful. So thank you for providing that to everyone just by being you. And all the extra stuff that goes with being you. I'm just, thank you for sharing. You're an amazing person.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess that is our show. Again, Diane, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for being here. You have made a very special show for us today. And we will keep it in our hearts, as I hope that you will keep it in yours. All right,
Absolutely.
everybody. I guess that's us then. Peace, love, and poetry. Until next
you.
time. Much love.